Hello, everybody. Happy New Year and welcome back to Wisdom Work with Christa and Christy. We are coming at you very real today, as usual, and talking about a lot of the emotions that Christy and I have both felt coming up with the new year, coming off of the holidays, and just being real with you because we both said before we started recording how grateful we are for this community because you all hold us in our truth and you hold us to really are the accountability partners in our journey so that we can show up and use the tools because we know we have a podcast to record. So, and it's also very helpful because Christy and I were just talking about how, one of us may be feeling one way and the other was feeling a different way, and then it flip-flops. So being able to have partners in your life where you can say, hey, I'm not feeling so great, where they can hold a ton of space for you just to feel that way. So we're going to talk a lot about this today. So Chris, why don't you fill us in? Tell us how your holidays were. How are you feeling today? What's going on?
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. And yes, as Krista just said, we were discussing that we're just hit with a lot of feelings in the beginning of the year. And I think, a lot of it does have to do with, the holidays being so intense. And Chris, you were just saying this, like it's supposed to be a time of rest, the winter, and then the holidays are jammed in there. And it's so intense. And then you come off of it and you're also hit with all this like, okay, now set your goals, be your best self, do all the things. And it's a lot. It's overwhelming. And I do want to acknowledge that Krista and I are recording this a little late. It's coming to you late. We're sorry for that, but that was why, because it was so impossible for us to pull this off in the chaos of the holidays. And I'm sure you all understand and are okay with that. The good news is you'll get another episode only a couple weeks later. So we're hitting you twice in less than a month. So hopefully that makes up for it. So anyway, for me, yes, the holidays were insane. They were wonderful, but a lot. And we had a lot of kids were sick. I was sick and thrown in the mix of trying to do holiday stuff. That's stressful. I'm sure lots of people can relate to that too.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, Krista and I are talking, at the end of the holidays leading into the new year. And I'm telling her, I am just so amped for 2023. I cannot wait for 2023. I have got goals on goals on goals. And I still do. I do. I had this incredible energy going into the new year. And at the time, Krista was saying, well, it's interesting you should say it because I'm not really feeling that way. And I was like, oh no, okay. And, we just kind of talked through it. And, basically we said how important it is that we discuss this today because the truth is you don't have to be in a place where you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I've got so many goals and this year's going to be great. And the truth is a lot of people don't feel that way January 1st because we're having a hangover from the holidays. It's really hard to get yourself clear and straight. But that being said, I did have this clear agenda and I was so pumped. And then I woke up this morning and I didn't feel that way. I just didn't feel that way. And I woke up and I'm like, oh, what is going on? I just felt all sorts of uninspired, unmotivated, a tad bit depressed. I just was like, what is happening here? And again, I think it's actually because there's so much going on. And maybe I have too many things in mind that I want to try and accomplish this year that it's almost like, where do I even start? And but I was telling Krista, I went to drop my son off at preschool and I'm in the funk. I drop him off and I'm like, Christy, you need to get it together. You know how to get yourself out of this and you better do it quick because you were in a really good place and you had a lot of good energy coming into 2023. You better pull it back together. So, now granted, I'm trying to be graceful with myself, and I accept that it's okay to have bad days. But today I was like, you know what? Actually, no. I'm recording with Krista later. I don't have time right now to be in a bad mood. So, anyway, I went home and I just did a workout. I was like, I gotta get this energy moving. Then I had a call with somebody that about a talk I'm doing coming up, and I wrote the talk after I got off the call, and I just got myself back into this place where I'm inspired again and I'm feeling good. And I think that today in this conversation, what I'd love for us to talk about is the fact that it's okay to have moments of like peak inspiration and feeling really good and feeling motivated and on task, or like you're headed in the right direction. It's also okay to have days where you're like, I don't really feel that way. What I'm going to do is take the break that I need if I need it, you know, take a bath, take a walk, do something for yourself that day. I know we all don't have like tons of time to squeeze in this self care, but give yourself that space if you need it. And there have been many days that I have done that and do that. Or you can take a day like today for me and reach into your toolkit and say, what can I pull out that's going to help me shift this and move the energy through me? And for me today, that was a workout. And it was just like choosing something to refocus my energy on that was going to get me motivated again and inspired. And so that's where I am right now, heading into the new year. I do really have a lot of good energy, and I do feel very clear on what my goals are and my intentions, which this is something that you and I talked about this time last year. It doesn't always have to be about goals. Intention setting is so powerful. Like, what are your intentions for the way that you want to feel in your job, at home, you know, in all aspects of life? Like, what do you intend to feel? What do you intend to experience in your life? Like, that can be equally as powerful, if not more powerful, than setting some tangible goal.
Mhm.
So that's my perspective for right now. I'm going to pass it back to you, Chris, and you can explain to us how things have been for you coming into the new year.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing your story because I see so much of myself in it where I'll get really motivated and then it's like, hit the ground. So that's what we want to normalize today. And in both of our stories, when we share from our hearts and what we're going through in our lives, I really feel like it's medicine for the culture to just normalize that you're not alone if you're feeling this way. Um, so for me, coming off the holidays were really great. We had a lot of visitors from out of town, which was fun to see. My parents came in, my sister-in-law and her husband came in. So it was really fun to have everybody here. And my husband and I were both working, and my son was off for 2 weeks. So it was just a lot. Like, it's just a lot of energy to manage, to work with. And my husband has a big busy season coming up in January. So he works a lot normally during the holiday season anyway. And then with my work, it's a wellness retreat. So people come because they're off from work. So it was just like a lot, not good or bad, just a lot. For me, I know myself well enough now that I require a ton of quiet. I require a ton of time to myself. I require a ton of self-care, like a ton. So way more, I think, than normal. And I wasn't getting that. And I knew that as I'm walking through the 2 weeks of the holidays, I was like, I'm not doing my things. I know I need to. And I was trying to still do some meditation in the morning, like things that I could still do. Um, and there was some emotional stuff happening internally. There were some triggers happening in my life, and it took me down. I was so I was telling Christy before we started recording this, I have never felt this way. I'd say in like a good 5, 6 years. Like the amount of down I felt, the funk, like the so in my head and couldn't get out of the story. A lot of limiting beliefs came through, and really, really took hold on me. I was telling one of my friends, like, it felt like I was getting choked by these limiting beliefs. Like, really, really hard for me to not to like push through them and like to counter them, like very, very hard. And normally I can. So I was like, what is going on right now? And astrologically, like I always follow my teachers that know about the planets. And coming into the new year, we have Mars and Mercury both in retrograde, which any retrograde period means that they're following a different way. They're not facing direct. So it kind of gives you an opportunity to look beneath the surface of what's going on in your life. So I've heard it said before where it's kind of like you pick up a rock and you see like all the critters and like all the dirt under the rock. But if you had the rock facing down, you'd see just a nice little rock, in the garden. So this time for me, especially the winter, I've been really trying to focus on seasonal cycling with emotions and like focusing on launching and doing different things throughout my different phases of my cycle, but also the seasons of the year. And with winter, I wrote about this in my last newsletter. It's calling for rest. It's the darkest time of the year, the winter solstice. It's the shortest day, the longest night. So we need to rest. And like you said, the holidays are smack dab in the middle of that. So it is so against the grain of what our human bodies really want to be doing is shopping, feeling, seeing bright lights and going to theaters and doing all the things, eating tons of sugar. Like this messes with our mental health. So just to say that, I felt this firsthand, eating more gluten, which we don't typically do a lot of, lots of dairy, lots of treats, lots of sugar, lots of alcohol. Like these are things that don't help my mental health. And it's the holidays. So I was balancing the social and the, being healthy. So anyway, I digress. So I'm trying to get this hold of these limiting beliefs off of me and expand, but it wasn't ready. So that's another thing I want to talk about is just resting in the hold, like resting in the discomfort and then trusting your instincts that you will know when it's time to move forward. So not getting stuck there, but for me, and this is not for everybody, for me, I tend to bypass those negative feelings too quickly. So for me, my practice is to stay in the discomfort and to stay in the rage and to stay in the anger and to stay in the whatever it is, the frustration, and to find tools to move it through my body. Like you said, Chris, with the exercise, like that's a big tool for me to go for my walk on the lagoon, like just leave it all there, punch a pillow. I did that multiple times over the 2 weeks, screaming in the car with the windows up, like putting on rage music and just stomping out to it, like really just moving it through your body because emotions are energy in motion. So we just want to keep it going. So I would have these glimpses of release, and then it would be like literally 5 minutes later, I'd get triggered again. And it would be like the immense hold. And I'm like, what is going on? And like you mentioned a couple episodes ago, it's like the same patterns that I thought I had healed and the same narratives that I thought I had healed long ago were coming back with a vengeance. And at this point in my journey, I can see from the bird's eye view approach to be like, okay, this isn't going to last forever. What is the lesson in all of this? And is it time to learn it yet? And for me, it wasn't. I was like so in it. And I was like, Christa, just feel it. Just feel it. Just feel it. What are you feeling? Feel it to heal it. Like feel it all. Feel all the rage. Feel it all. And then when you know it's time to journal about it or it's time to look for the lessons, like you will know. So I did go to yoga. I took a week off of work. So the first week of January I had to take off because I was not sure what I was going to say. Thought I was going to snap. And I didn't trust myself because the emotions were so there and I needed the regulation for the emotional regulation. So I took a week off of work. I did tons of self-care, was still feeling it, but I was committed to going to yoga. I committed to going on my walks, committed to going to acupuncture, like knowing what I needed to do. set up an appointment with the couples therapist for my husband and I, because we were in it too. So there's just like a lot going on. And then I do have some silver lining here. Then one day, a couple days ago, all of a sudden I got it. It was like a lightning bolt hit. And it was like, Christa, just pull the ripcord. Look at your life with no limits. Like you have been limiting your beliefs so much. Like, I can't do this. I can't have that. I can't do blah, 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 blah. Can't, shouldn't. Like all of these things that are just so subconscious. And I pulled all of that off and I said, what if? What if I didn't wait for blah, 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 blah to happen and I just did it now? What if I figured this out and I made this happen? Like all my dreams that I've been cycling around, it's like, well, what if we started moving on those? Like
Wow.
what if? So it was so beneficial for me to have that moment of total clarity and like full abundance and full expansion. And I needed to go into the depths of the darkness to be able to get so annoyed and so like full of it, of rage and like frustration, to be like, that's it. Like I am done with the limiting, and like just ripped it all off.
Wow. Wow.
So that's me today.
First of all, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that there is always so much value in hearing someone's story that intimately, but especially just the way you talked us through the process of how you dealt with it from a wisdom work perspective. You know, there is so much. I mean, I would advise listen back to that a couple times. Everybody that's listening, and
I will.
see what you can get out of that, because there is so much to be said for, first of all, I love the what if. I love the what if. I mean, let that be a mantra. Hold on to that going into this new year, because this is something I've been trying to really focus on myself too, is those limiting beliefs that we all have, and to varying degrees at different times in our lives. There's certain things that are holding us back more than others. But limiting beliefs are a really tricky element to progress. They're a really tricky element to growth, because if you really latch onto those beliefs and believe in them, then you believe, I can't get to that place I want to get to, right? Any vision you hold for your future, if there's a limiting belief in any way in your mind, even if it's, like you said, if it's in your subconscious and you're not even realizing it every day, that you've got limiting beliefs there somewhere present, it's going to keep you stuck. And that is something I have really been diving into myself. And I want to tell you that the main thing that gets me moving forward in the right direction past my limiting beliefs is saying to myself, one foot in front of the other. Just take baby steps, because no matter how inspired you might be in one moment, and like you said, you have this big moment and you feel all this expansion and you feel so ready to like take on the world. As I was saying, I was ready to tackle 2023 with that kind of energy. That's great. And it serves such a beautiful purpose for our ability to envision what we want, right? But to get from point A to point B is going to take more moments of small steps, intentional steps to get there. And that is a really important part of the puzzle here. And also staying in the mess of it, you know, when you're in those moments where it feels so messy and you feel like you're drowning and you feel like, you said, like a chokehold is on you. I have been there. I know what that feels like. And it is so hard to see anything from that space. Those are the moments where you have to really proceed with caution and just remind yourself, as Christa said, I have to sit with this pain. I have to sit with this pain and let it do whatever it needs to do in order for me to eventually shift. And in that time frame, what you want to do is just take small steps of intention towards your goal, and believe that you can, you know, believe that you can shift whatever is in your way. Believe that you can change those limiting beliefs. And there's so much power, I think, in mantras when it comes to that. And just saying to yourself, one thing I have been focusing on recently is like, I believe that I am worthy of what I want. We actually, I mean, there's so much out there right now about like the neuroscience and neuroplasticity and how we can actually change the frequencies in our brain by
Mhm.
changing the way that we think. And, mantras are a great way to do that. You choose one for every day. I switch them up all the time. One that I've been thinking of recently saying to myself is that, and this is definitely a Gabrielle Bernstein, I'm sure I got it from her. But it's everything is happening for my highest good, and I truly am taken care of.
Mm.
That allows me in the moments where I feel so stuck, or I feel like, you know what, I'm working so hard towards all of these goals. It feels like nothing's happening. I feel like I'm running in place. I get small wins here and there, but like overall, I'm not getting where I want to be. When I'm in those moments, that's when I've learned that you have to take your hands off the wheel and say, okay, I have to trust that everything is happening for the highest good for me. And that actually might mean that what's of the highest good for me right now is to feel like crap
Mm-hmm.
about something,
Yeah.
is for me to come to the moment that Krista was saying, where you have to turn the rock over, look at what's underneath of it and deal with it so that you can move forward, expand, create more space, and then allow what it is you're trying to move towards to get even that much closer to you. But this is the dance we're always doing. And I think that that's why it's really important for us in this community, for you and I to talk so openly about it, because it's just a part of the process. And when you get to a goal, there's going to be more goals, and I think we were talking about this before we hopped on, that it's in the process. It's in your joy, your true fulfillment happens in the process of working towards goals. It's really not when you get to that mountaintop. When you get there, it feels great, but then you've got other higher visions and goals that you're going to keep working towards. So if you only focus on, I just need to get to that place where like X, Y, and Z has happened for me and I feel so great, and then I'll be good once I get there. No, that's not ever how it's going to be. That's what I've learned, at least in my
Yeah.
own personal experience. It's never going to be that. So what we need to do is shift our mindset to pay attention to these small intentional moves we're making. Be proud of yourself for doing that. Be proud of yourself for waking up every day and choosing to take one tiny step towards your goal, even if that means resting.
Mm-hmm.
That actually is progress, because you're allowing yourself the space to take a second and then wake up the next morning, hopefully a little more energized on your path.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Yeah, everything you're saying, Chris, it just reminds me so much of that movie. Did you see Stutz on Netflix yet?
I haven't finished watching it. I got like
Oh,
halfway through it, but I did
yeah.
love what I saw.
It's so good. It's Jonah Hill, for all the listeners who haven't seen it. Jonah Hill, the actor, he has his therapist that he's been working with for years. He made a documentary with him, and they talk about the tools. There's a lot of wisdom work in this documentary. So I was so
Yes.
excited to see it because it's hitting mainstream. I thought it was so heartfelt. It's hilarious. It's wise. It's just beautiful to normalize the human experience and to get tools. So this guy, Phil
Yes.
Stutz, is a therapist. He works, I think, with a lot of celebrities, and he's written two books, Coming Alive and The Tools. So he has a lot of literal tools that he gives his patients to deal with hard times in their life. So one of the things he talked about that it keeps coming up for me when you're talking, Chris, is the life force. So he says,
Yes.
when did you see that part?
I did see that part.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's like, when things get hard, and this is what you're talking about with the one step in front of the other, it's like, don't focus on a solution at that moment because it seems too overwhelming to zoom out or to think bigger. Like you said, you're so in it. So just focus on your life force. What is going to breathe more life into you? Is it a workout? Is it a healthy meal? Is it a bath? Is it a hug? Is it a call with a friend? Like these little tiny things, because those little tiny things make up your life. And that's the life force that brings you back to life. It breathes more air into you so that you feel like you have a little bit more space to think about things in a different way or give you a perspective shift. But I just thought that was so valuable. And I love that you said that because also, if you haven't seen Stutz, maybe you've seen Frozen 2.
Yes.
Anna
Same theme.
take it one step at a time.
For any of our little listeners out there.
All of our little gurus on the planet. Stutz, Anna, whatever you want to do, whatever your flavor is. But all of these teachings are similar. So it's just like focusing on the next best thing. What's the next right thing? What's the right next move? Because for me, when I was in it, I just kept feeling my heartbeat. And I was like, it's okay, Christa. It's okay. I've got you. And I had to keep validating for myself that this is real. Like you're going through it right now, and it's okay to go through it. And luckily, I have beautiful women and friends in my life that all know how to hold space. So they're like, it's okay. We've been there too, or we're there right now with you. Like, I was texting with one of my beautiful client and friends, and she's just like, what is happening? I'm like, I don't know. I'm feeling it. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And then I text you and I'm like, what, are you okay? What's going on? And you're like, yeah, I'm training for marathon. All these different things. I'm like, okay, good. That's awesome. And I'm like, never apologize for being like motivated and inspired, because I was like, that gave me a glimmer of hope because I was feeling really hopeless. And then of course, I go to yoga and my yoga teacher's amazing. She has all these cards that we can pull, little affirmation cards. And I pull, I am hopeful. And she said to me, she goes, do you want to keep that? And I was like, oh, and she never lets us keep them. And so I had it for like 2 days and I just put it in my car. And every time I got in the car, I just said, I am hopeful. I am hopeful. Like I will be able to get out of this. Nothing is permanent, the good times or the bad. So knowing, like you said, it's the progress and the journey of the whole thing and what we learn along the way. And being able to say, I'm not alone. Like if you have, this is why we started this, right? It's like to be able to have a community where you can be real with and be like, I'm not good right now. Like I'm not okay. And it's okay not to be okay because that's part of the growth. And that's where all of those nuggets live, the wisdom work nuggets that you get eventually when you work through it. But like you said, Chris, like it's work. It takes a lot out of you to like, I mean, I had to take a week off of my life and work to like get myself better. And it doesn't always take that long. But for me, this time was like really dark and deep. So I had to create a lot of space. I went in nature a lot. I went to the beach and like just looked at the oceans and just visualized this time in my life crashing down just like any other wave. And it's like, okay, it will go back up and it's going to come back down. So whatever you need to do, know that we're here for you and that we love you and that we're on this journey together. And it's just part of the human experience to go through these ups and downs. Not all good.
Totally. And I really appreciate that visual of the ocean, the crashing and the ups and the downs, because really, if we look back at our lives, any of us up until this point, you can see that it's the good and the bad. It's the up and the down. That is how this life experience is going to continually go. And unfortunately, I feel like we were kind of sold this idea that eventually you got to a point where that didn't happen. And it's sad that so many of us, that's like deeply rooted in us somehow. It doesn't mean like your parents planted it in you necessarily. Like we just culturally got this notion that if we work hard enough, if we do all the right things, if we hustle, then we'll hit this peak moment and smooth sailing from there on out. And that is just a lie. It's not true. Even for the people that you see and you may deem as the most successful people you know, even they do not get gifted this magical card that says, okay, you've done it. Now you get to just have easy street for the rest of your life. No, it's just not. But there's also so much to be seen in the beauty of that. If we can allow ourselves to see it that way, there is so much beauty to be found in the hardest times of your life and the biggest challenges you face. Because when you face them and you come out on the other side of it, you're better for it. You're better because of it. And by better, I mean just freer.
Mm-hmm.
You have a new sense of self when you come out of any sort of battle in your life, whether it be big or small. And then you also have this clarity around what you're capable of, right? So for me, it's always been the hardest times. I'm able to remind myself each time I'm in a tough moment that, like, remember what you got through? Remember the ways that you've healed X, Y, and Z? Like, then you're good. Like, you will get through this. You will be okay. And, even I was just talking to my daughter the other night about, just something that she was worried about. And I said, like, what's the worst case scenario? Like, let's go there. And we talked about what the worst possible case scenario would be. And I said, is that scary? And she's like, yeah. And I said, but would you be okay? And she was like, well, yeah, I guess. And I'm like, yeah, you would. Like, you would be upset, you'd be hurt, you'd be whatever, but would you be okay? Yeah. Okay. Then that's what you have to keep in mind, is that, like, we are resilient individuals, all of us. We have so much resiliency inside of us. We just sometimes forget that it's there, and we get scared of the process of working through things or looking at what's hard in ourselves or in our relationships or in our life. It gets scary, and we sometimes just think, I don't have it in me to deal with that. But the truth is, you do.
Yeah.
You might not have the ability to completely go through it on your own, and it's important to notice that and, seek the help that you need to get you through it. And we've talked about this a million times. Seek out the right experts and the right, specialists to help you walk through that. But you yourself are resilient enough to get through anything. And so I think as we look towards this year and we talk about goals and intentions, I think a really powerful one for all of us to set intention wise is the intention to be gentle with ourselves in our process, is just to continue to stay in it on your own growth journey, but to really lean into being gentle with yourself and cheering for yourself when you have small wins. You getting through what you just got through in the past week is a big win in terms of, look at what you did. You turned to all the tools you knew. You had incredible self-awareness, right? You just said, I know that I need a lot of quiet time. I need a lot of self-care. I need, and some people listening might say, yeah, I need those things too, but I don't have the time for it. Well, that answer right there tells you a lot. You think that you don't deserve or you don't have the ability to give yourself what you need. And it's not true. You may not be able to take, a lot of time off of work if that's not in the cards for you, but, like, you do have the ability every evening to, like, carve out an hour for yourself, maybe after your family goes to bed or whatever, where you are intentionally letting yourself feel what you need to feel and go through what you need to go through, and, just lean on whatever tools work for you. But be gentle with yourself and be a champion for yourself. That would be my advice as we head into 2020.
I
What do you
love
got?
that.
What do you got for us, Chris, before we close things out here? What is
I'm
your
like still simmering in that. I think that's so beautiful. And the gentleness, yes, like gentle is the new power. It's the more gentle we are, the more powerful we are. So it is not the loudest or the most forceful that, that old way of thinking about power. It's really the one who's so peaceful and gentle is the most powerful. And what I'm learning around my own emotion coaching is like, I don't need to yell to be heard. Like, I can just be in my kind voice, say what I mean without saying it meanly. But that's probably another podcast.
That's a big one though. And
That's
I
a
think
big one.
I applaud you for, the recognizing that, because
Yeah.
I think that is, oh, I love what you just said about the power is in the peace and the
Hmm.
peacefulness. I mean, I think that is something, again, like culturally, that we've been told and taught for so long, was that the example was, to get anything done, you got to work harder, you got to be louder, you got to show that you are immovable and unstoppable. And I don't know. I guess I've never actually subscribed to that because it's not in my nature, but it's really encouraging to me to see our whole culture shifting towards that and starting
Hmm.
to understand that, like, gentleness does not mean weakness.
Right.
You know, it's not at all weak. It actually requires a great amount of strength to stay in a peaceful place and operate that way.
Hmm.
It requires an incredible amount of strength. So I love that you spoke to that. Thank you.
Yes. Well, so for my New Year's ideas is that I pulled off the pressure of putting whatever I want to do this year into this month where I was feeling funky and not in it. So I am waiting. I am just giving myself permission to not set any goals or intentions. I have ideas, but I'm just simmering on them. I'm not acting yet because Mercury goes direct. I think January 21st, which aligns with the Chinese New Year. So there's just a lot of different things happening culturally and globally that, we're really not meant to be in this hustle mode at this point right now. So I'm just trying to live that and embody that and just go slow, which is hard. So for me, what my intention is to use the moon cycles this year as my New Year's resolutions or my New Year's energy. So every new moon, and I've talked about this before, and I've kind of done it, but I really want to like double down on the intentions. So every new moon, I set intentions. So it can be like January 1st feeling and say, okay, what do I want to accomplish this month? What do I want to feel? Who do I want to connect with? Like, what are those intentions? And then the full moon happens, and that is a way of releasing. So thinking about what is not serving me anymore. What am I doing right now that's not working? Maybe it's the way I'm taking care of myself. Maybe it's a limiting belief. Maybe it's a narrative. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a job, whatever. Release it or make a plan to release it. And every month we have those opportunities to do that. So for me, I'm going to do that 13 times this year and do intention setting and releasing, intention setting and releasing. So what do I want and what do I want to release every month?
I love that.
Yeah,
Oh, I love that.
me too.
Because that also takes the pressure off of, like,
Hmm.
figure out right now in the first month of the year what
Yes.
you want to focus on for the entire year, which is a
Yeah,
really heavy ask of yourself.
it
Because,
is. It is.
I
I
mean,
think it's great in the fact that you can do a zoom out approach
yeah,
because that's helpful too. But for me, especially with my profession and dieting, like the diet culture is, I mean, we could do another whole episode on this, but it's just so harmful. Like to have this mindset around weight loss and get my body different. Like it's one thing if you're using the lens of health and the
yeah,
intention of I want to be healthier and I want to, help my brain and my mental health and my emotional health, all that. Great. However, what I see anecdotally in my stuff with patients and clients is that that lens is not there. It's really like I'm going to hate myself skinny or I'm going to like muscle through this and as soon as I get to that weight, then I'm going to be healthy. And
yeah.
it's like, what? Like talk about the journey, talk about the progress and like being in it in the moment to moment and like the mindful eating and like all these little moments really string together our years and our life. So being intentional in each moment to accept what is first and foremost, like be aware of what's going on and accept it for what it is, and then say, is it serving or is it not serving? And then make a change.
Oh, that is a powerful, powerful roadmap for this year. And I'm so glad you shared it with us. That is something I think we should all try to do.
Good.
This monthly intention, that is just such a great idea. So I think that we covered a lot here
We
today.
did, always.
And we, of course, really hope that in sharing what we share of our own experiences, that you are able to extract from that something that is of value to you on your own path. At the end of the day, that's what this Wisdom Work podcast is all about. Is Christa and I, listen, we'd be having these conversations anyway. But we're hoping that by sharing them, you're getting something out of it. So again, as always, please reach out, tell us your feedback, give us your insight on whatever we're talking about, give us any suggestions of things you want to talk about. And we are going to be bringing you another virtual retreat coming soon. We're very excited to share that with you. I'll put all the details about that in the show notes here. It'll be sometime next month. And we are very, very excited to share that with you. More information about that in the show notes. We would love to have everyone join us. It's easy to get involved because it's Zoom. You can join us from anywhere. So keep a lookout for more information about that. And we're just wishing you all the greatest possible start to your new year. And thank you for taking the time to be here with us and share in this Wisdom Work community. We are going to have a great year together here. I can feel it.
I am hopeful.
I am hopeful. Let that be our mantra. All right. We'll see everybody next time on Wisdom Work with Christa and Christy.